Okay, so I've welded metal tabs to pull the door in on both sides. I'm hopeful that is enough to get the door to fit properly. I don't know, we're going to test fit it and find out. If not, I'm going to have to improvise. Maybe shave the door a little bit. Okay, so at this point it has become clear to me that this door just isn't going to fit in this frame. I guess I should have allowed more slush factor in the measurements. I was hoping for just a good tight fit, but tolerances are too tight here. So either I have to shave this door down, and I'm not sure of its construction on the edges. I believe it's a wooden core with steel cladding. So either I have to cut the door down at the hinge side, and it looks like from the top here that may work based on the thickness of the wood. That might be the way to go. If I shave a saw kerf off of this, I may be able to get it to go. I'm also probably going to use an exterior piano style hinge instead of regular door hinges. So that's what I think I'll do. I think I'll shave the door and then paint that end. And hopefully the hinge that I use will fit properly if I get a piano hinge for the door. So anyhow, improvising. Got to roll with the punches here. I've already got this frame far too installed to go back and change it. So we're going to shave the door. Frustration. Okay, so at this point I'm going to shave. I've taken the hinges off. I'm going to shave some of this width off the door, and then most likely smear it with the Sikaflex to fill any of the wood, and put a coat of paint on it. After that, I'll be putting a piano hinge on the outside. So a little bit of a kludge, but I'm not going for glamour here. I'm going for functionality on this bus. Okay, so back at the bus, working on the back hatch. I put some paint on the door that I shaved, so waiting for that to dry, along with a little more white paint on the door jamb. But I've cut the sheet metal to cover the back hatch, and so now I'm laying out where the fasteners are going to go. Okay, so I have layout marked. The very visible markings here are the edge of the bar. It's the support on the inside. That's where the rivets are going to go. I've got faint lines where I'm going to drill the holes, or faint marks, and then I'm going to drill for each of these for a rivet hole. So I've got everything clamped. I'm going to drill the holes. Then I will put Sikaflex down, and we'll put the rivets in and rivet this in so that the sheet is secured. But you can probably see, like this marking there is one of the drill holes. They're every 3 inches. There's another one here. I'll try to center on the bars. Okay, so I've got the holes drilled, and at this point I'm going to disassemble this and put Sikaflex in, and then we'll place the rivets and rivet it together. Got the help of my nephew Joshua visiting from out of state here with his mom, so we'll get this thing riveted up. Alright, so Joshua's running the rivet gun. Good job, dude. Let your sister do one. Hannah, you want to try? Joshua, you show her how to do it.
No,
He's going to line it up for you. You can pull the trigger and pop it.
pull the trigger.
Pull it hard. Good job, Hannah Banana. All right. Okay, so we've got the skin riveted to the back hatch. We have it flipped over now. I'm going to slot the ends right here, and then I'll bend the metal over for the part that's going to go under the window so that it fits properly and keeps kind of directs the water out. Okay, so I've got this edge rolled over with the hammer, And I'm going to start riveting the rolled edge in to tighten it up, keep it flush. But that should help keep water out, I'm hoping. So I curled that sheet metal over the top of the hatch. Now I'm using the clamps to hold it tight in and riveting it in place so that it'll be flattened against the angle iron. So hopefully the rolled edge here will help water kind of flow out away from the inside of the bus. But there will be weather seals as well. Okay, so I'm about halfway through the rolled edge here, riveting it down. And I'll trim it with the angle grinder with the cutoff wheel when I'm done. It's overlapping a little bit. After that, I'm going to put some Sikaflex in so that water doesn't get behind that metal. And the other part I'm going to do here is to run the wire wheel on this and hit it with more primer and paint all the way around. Get it nicely painted. Okay, so I've trimmed the excess metal off of that edge. That way the weather stripping will seat properly. We won't have sheet metal blocking this from closing all the way. So next step now is to wire wheel the back side of this and hit it with a coat of primer. And then we'll coat the whole thing in white paint, white spray paint, and then we'll work on the back of the bus with some sheet metal. I'm moving on from that side door for now because I ordered a stainless hinge for it and it isn't here yet till tomorrow, so we'll maybe work on that tomorrow. Okay, so I have this back hatch fully painted with a coating of spray paint over a primer. So at this point I also have this trim painted, and I'm going to cut this piece of angle iron to go over that trim, and we'll kind of construct the back hatch area. And also we're going to start cutting sheet metal here out of this piece to trim out the back. I don't know if I have enough there or not, but we'll find out. Okay, so I've cut a piece of angle iron. It's going to go over this sheet metal trim in the back of the bus. That'll add some strength so that when the engine bay door lifts up, it secures it. It doesn't let it smash the sheet metal. So anyhow, we're going to put a coat of white paint on this. I've already cut it to length. And we'll let this dry, and probably tomorrow I'll get it fastened, most likely with rivet nuts, or maybe even sheet metal screws. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so yesterday evening my wife and I cut these little pieces for the back corners, and what I'm going to do after this dries, right now I'm tidying up inside the bus, but what I'm going to do after this paint dries is take these over to the vise, and I may use some angle iron to help support the sheet metal. My intention is to kind of tap bends into these. It's a little bit stiff to just bend it around the corner, but we're going to tap some bends into these little by little. First bend will be a 90 to slot in beside the engine bay door, but these two pieces of metal will cap the corners starting from the bottom, and we'll need to trim them a little bit, drill a hole or two, but my goal is to finish up the back, or almost finish the back today if I can. Might be aggressive, but certainly by the end of the weekend, here Independence Day weekend, I'll have the back buttoned up, and probably the side door on as well. Alright, so I'm bending this because my brake's only 30 inches and this is 41 and change. Bending this on the vise. I'm also going to use this piece of pipe like a dolly. Never done this before actually, but I figure I'll clamp the pipe in place so that it rises above the jaws with the metal around it, and I'll just kind of bend this metal over the pipe, and then we'll scoot it and bend it a little more. So it should give me the rough the rough radius I'm looking for. Alright, so I have the pipe clamped in behind the sheet metal. The white side's going to face inside. I just coated that side for rust mitigation. So we're going to bend this over the pipe, and hopefully as we move this along, it'll give me the right radius. Okay, so I've got 2 Tech screws through the angle iron with the drip edge mounted below it. So next step will be to lay the hatch in and get the hinge fastened. I'll run a clamp or two at top, over top. Probably these big spring clamps, just to hold the hatch in place. Boy, it's hot. I better get something to cool off here. Okay, so the hatch is lifted up in place. It's being held with those clamps right there. I'm going to run Tech screws down the bottom here, self-tapping Tech screws, and that should be good and strong. And then after that, I'm going to drill holes from the inside and use riv nuts to secure the top. Okay, except for the spots where I broke off some fasteners, this hinge is put on. I was going to try to use a little bit bigger screw right there, but the hole's not quite large enough. So we'll back that out. But yeah, the hinge is on, and I could use something cold to drink. Okay, so I've opened the hatch. Here's what it looks like now that it's fastened with the hinge. There are going to be some riv nuts in the top, and those will be bolted through that angle iron to keep it shut. So there'll probably be 3 of those, maybe 4. So yeah, I feel a sense of accomplishment here. We got this hatch built and roughed in without the weather stripping. I did leave the 1/8 inch angle iron back there to gap it so that we can put the weather stripping in. So this came together pretty nicely. Here's the view from inside. Okay, so yesterday we got the hatch mounted, at least the hinge. Today's agenda is to finish closing up the back, and the hinge came yesterday from Amazon for the side door. It's the same hinge that I used on the back hatch, stainless. I'm going to mount that to the door and get the door hung today. And then, yeah, that's probably about it. Maybe tidy up the bus a little bit. Depends on how long I can work today, it being the 4th of July. So anyhow, I'm getting started here. Okay, so what I'm doing now is using these old window pieces as templates for new sheet metal. As I mentioned, using the windows there is not necessary because there's going to be storage, most likely little cabinets or nightstands, you know, or combos, I guess, cabinet, nightstand, shelf things that are going to be on the sides of the back window. So there's really no reason to have a window there. It just adds extra possibilities of leakage. I thought about restoring this window and reusing it. You know, I don't know if you could see the sunlight glare there. The rust, I could have patched that, but it's probably better just to start with new metal since I don't need the windows. Well, I don't know how long they'll last, but these Harbor Freight shears seem to be doing pretty well. This is I believe 18 gauge, and I wouldn't go any thicker than this with them, but they seem to cut pretty well on this. Okay, so right now I've used another piece of angle iron and a bigger hammer. I'm going to try to sharpen the bend here with the 2 angle iron pieces kind of sandwiching together. Hopefully it works out. Never tried this technique, but it seems logical to me. At this stage, hammering it with the angle iron, you can see the marks there. Still a little bit more rounded over than I wanted. I want it more squared. So I'm going to put it back in the vise and hit the metal directly with the hammer, gently, and see if I can tap it into more of a sharp crease. Okay, so I was actually hitting it through this piece of metal like so, and that seems to have sharpened up that angle without causing too many dents. I mean, the whole bus is going to get a little bit of a pre-paint treatment with, you know, Bondo for low spots and stuff. There's no way to avoid that with all I've done to it. So I'm not overly worried. Just means a little more work later if I ding the metal a bit. That's why those corner caps aren't looking perfect either. I plan to have to mud a little bit. Okay, so I am happier with that bend. Doesn't look as rounded. Still a little bit rounded, but that's okay. Now I'm going to hit this with a wire wheel, coat it front and back with some white paint, let it dry. We'll do the other one similarly, cut it out and bend this over. And I'll cut these tabs to the right dimension when I go up to the bus and fit it, you know, based on, you know, where this needs to be tabbed out. And then this will get riveted into the hat channel, and we'll drill holes from the inside out for these other edges with some Sikaflex around the whole thing. So that'll cover that top gap. We do need to fix the hat channel a little bit. This bottom area, actually, I'm going to need to bend a little bit as well. About that much of it is bent a little bit. You'll see when we look at the window. The old hat channels had a, well, the old window, or the center window, I should say, has a slight bend in it, and I need to cut away the hat channel caps a little bit to accommodate that. I might need to weld them in the right shape. So just need to scribe that line and adjust it as we go here. Okay, so I have the second piece cut using the opposite window. Now I'm going to go bend that 90 using the vise again, just like I did on this one here. Okay, so now this piece of metal's folded over with the hammer and the vise, and we'll get these cleaned up with the wire wheel and we'll hit them with a coat of paint. Okay, so I held this up against the bus and I had marked where I needed to notch the tab. Here this is going to be bent down a bit, so that tab there, we'll let it be bent. And we'll transfer these to the other side after I double check on the side of the bus. Okay, so we've got those top pieces ready to put in, except for a bend at the bottom, and they are painted. Let them dry here. I think I'm going to work on the back corner caps next here and get them installed. Okay, so I've cut notches in that corner cap. This will go beside the hatch for the engine bay, and I'm probably going to take this over to the vice's rounded edge and try to dolly out some of the dents and dings and kind of make this a little more smooth than it is. It's not the worst thing ever, but there's pretty big kind of dents in here from bending it, so we'll try to smooth it out some. It's still going to need a little coat of Bondo, but that's to be expected. I don't have all the tools I actually need. Okay, so I have these corner pieces bent and I notched them with the angle grinder. A lot of dings and dents in them, but that's going to be easy to body fill compared to the big dents that were already on it. So you'll notice a little bit of blood there. It turns out blood makes metal bend better, so I made sure to add some blood to the mix here. Somehow I pinched my finger. You can't really see it now, it stopped bleeding, but something pinched my finger. So anyway, I'm going to hit these with the wire wheel, coat them with some white paint, and then we'll remove a piece of the back material that's bolted on underneath the engine bay, and we'll be able to slot these in. So, but first they're going to get painted and dried. These are almost dry over here, so we'll probably work on them again next. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is drill some holes on this back flange, top and probably 2 on the bottom, and then probably 3 or 4 on the top. And then we're going to put riv nuts in. So we're going to drill 5/16 holes, and then we'll use the other drill bit from outside to use the riv nut tool and insert some riv nuts into the frame of the hatch. So right now, before I drop the hatch, I'm going to drill those holes. Okay, so we have 4 holes drilled from inside. I decided not to drill any extra holes at the bottom. They're going to be hard to access. Almost impossible once we put some insulation down here and some wood to cover that. So we're going to drop this hatch, and then we'll go outside. We'll install these pieces here with a thin bead of caulk around them, and we'll drill these rib nut holes for the hatch. After that, we'll put the rib nuts in, put the hatch back in place, and test fit the bolts. Okay, so I have all 4 holes drilled in the hatch. Now it's time to insert these rib nuts. Okay, so I've got these 4 rivet nuts installed at the top edge of the hatch. Next up, I'm gonna finish cutting these hat channel caps for the angle. It's got to kind of bow in a little bit, bend in a little bit. You can see a faint line at the top of the window. There's a bit of a bend at the bottom of the window. And then similarly, these panels here that are going to go in, those empty spaces will have a little bend in them. But first we've got to cut this out a little bit and tab that down. So that's what's happening next. Okay, so I've slotted these and bent them in. Now the metal should fit over both sides. So we're going to test fit that, and then we'll look at where we have to trim that and make some marks. Okay, so I've got that first side riveted on 2 sides with 1/4-inch rivets. Now I'm about to bend the other piece. It's laying right there. For that side, we'll get that fastened in place, and then we'll be able to shut this hatch. Okay, so hopefully you can see this with the light. I've got this piece put in place, ready to drill holes and put rivets in with some Sikaflex. Although I'm a little low on Sikaflex, I might have to find a tube of regular caulk. Okay, so I have that side as well over here connected on 2 sides with rivets. Now I'm going to use 3/16 rivets on the bent pieces inside the window and inside the hatch. We're going to put some rivets in there to hold those flush as they can be. Okay, so it's the next day here, the 5th of July, and I got that inside trim pop riveted in place there and over there and along the inside of the window. Of course, it's dirty from being clamped and beat up and stuff. I'm just going to wipe it and hit it with some more white spray paint here in a little bit, but ultimately that's going to have Bondo on it to smooth it out, along with these rounded panels. You know, making these in a crude fashion means that I have some finishing work to do, but you work with what you got. I don't have a full machine shop at my disposal and don't feel like paying for specialty parts to get made. So anyhow, at this point I'm going to close this hatch and test fit the bolts into the rib nuts and see that they thread. I think I'll get some anti-seize lubricant on those bolts. That's the next step here. Make sure this hatch can close still. Okay, so I've got the 4 5/16 bolts in. The top, the back hatch is done. It's a success. I've got the top corners done. The only thing left in the back is to put the corner pieces in. You see a little daylight there. I have not yet put in the weather seals, and I've tightened it a little further than it's going to go once the weather seals are in, just to get the bolts threaded good. They do have anti-seize on them. I don't want them to rust up and make it real hard to open this hatch. And this hatch should not be opened very often. The real intent here is to load the mattress, like I've said in other videos, because we're using actual box springs and a hotel mattress. And after we build stuff inside, if we ever need to take the mattress out, I don't want it to be impossible. So that is the reason for the hatch. Okay, so there's the back of the bus. I've got it done except for these corner pieces that I fabricated. I've got to take this piece off here, and on the other side I've got a nut or two to remove to be able to slide them in, or a screw or two I meant. Yeah, this one here, I got to get that screw out to be able to slide it in behind, and I may need to trim them some, but yeah, I think it's working pretty well. I mean, the finished product is a little rough right now, but you know, I could probably work on things like this uneven trim here. I could likely put a piece of metal in to even up that line, you know, things like that. But I'm pleased with it. For redneck ingenuity, it works pretty well. I think another thing I'm probably going to do is I'm likely to put a piece of sheet metal over the bottom of the window to kind of act as a lip over the edge of the hatch, and that'll help trim that out where it's all rounded, make it look a little better. So, you know, a piece of sheet metal, I've got to think about how I want that to work, but you know, it should hide a lot of the edge there. All right, so I took off that back plate, the 1/2-inch bolts that were in it, and that'll allow me to put these pieces on. Okay, so I have the metal spread on both sides, got those bumpers off. They were kind of dry rotted, so I'll have to find some other cushions to cushion the door from vibrating. But I got that slotted as well, got the screws out. Now it's time to put these cap pieces on. So as you can see from all the fingerprint marks and the mini clamps I'm using, this is not going in super easy, but I'm getting there. So I got this inside edge riveted, and now I'm trying to get it wrapped around tight with clamps on this edge, which will be covered by that door. I'm trying to get it in close enough that I can rivet this. So looks like right here I'm close enough, so I'm going to put one rivet there to start with. Okay, so that cap is in place. I need to trim this edge a little bit right here. Although that bumper goes over there, I'll have to drill some holes for the bolts. And then over here, it's not perfect, but this door is going to close and hide that with its flange for the most part. I'll probably put some caulk in, you know, make it look a little better when I body fill it, whatever. But you can see that this is bumpy, but it's less bumpy than this dent over here. And there's no way to pull that dent easy based on the way it's closed on the back. So I'm just going to cap these. Extra metal can't hurt. And since I had to do this side, I figured I'd make it symmetric and do them both. So next will be this one. Hope it goes easier. I must have done a much better job making this patch, or this panel, because it's fitting in easy. So I should be able to get this one put in a lot quicker. Okay, this is going way faster. It cooperated with me, fit right in. So I got that channel riveted on the inside of the engine bay. And now I'm going to do this other side here. I'm just got to squeeze it in, and it looks like it's going to fit good. Okay, cause for celebration. The back of the bus is all paneled. Got the caps on the corners, and with that I am done with the basic reskinning of the entire bus, except for hanging the side door. I do have a few more rivets to put in, and obviously the whole thing needs a lot of prep work before it's painted, but the most tedious part of this is done. So clap your hands for me. I'm happy.